Hi guys, it's Miss Coletti, and today we are going to be reading a tall tale. And if you aren't familiar with what tall tales are, I posted a different video. So pause this, go find the other video I posted that talks about fables, folk tales, and tall tales. Watch that so that you're informed on what a tall tale is, and then come back here and start this video over again. Okay, so our text today is called Sally Ann, Thunder Ann, Whirlwind, and it's retold by Mary Pope Osborne. One early spring day, when the leaves of the white oaks were about as big as a mouse's ear, Davy Crockett set out alone through the forest to do some bear hunting. Suddenly, it started raining real hard, and he felt obliged to stop for shelter under a tree. As he shook the rain out of his coonskin cap, he got sleepy, so he laid back into the crotch of the tree, and pretty soon he was snoring. Davy slept so hard he didn't wake up until nearly sundown, and when he did, he discovered that somehow or another, in all that sleeping, his head had gotten stuck in the crotch of the tree, and he couldn't get it out. Well, Davy roared loud enough to make the tree lose all its little mouse-ear leaves. He twisted and turned and carried on for over an hour, but still that tree wouldn't let go. Just as he was about to give himself up for a goner, he heard a girl say, "What's the matter, stranger?" You can see Davy right here, he's stuck. Even from his awkward position, he could see she was extraordinary. Tall as a hickory sapling, with arms as big as a keelboat tiller's. "My head's stuck, sweetie," he said, "and if you help me get it free, I'll give you a pretty little comb." "Don't call me sweetie," she said, "and don't worry about giving me no pretty little comb, neither. I'll free your old coconut, but just because I want to." Then this extraordinary girl did something that made Davy's hair stand on end. She reached in a bag and took out a bunch of rattlesnakes. She tied all the wiggly critters together to make a long rope, and as she tied, she kept talking. "I'm not a shy little colt," she said, "and I'm not no singing nightingale, neither. I can tote a steamboat on my back, outscream a panther, and jump over my own shadow. I can double up crocodiles any day, and I like to wear a hornet's nest for my Sunday bonnet." As the girl looped the ends of her snake rope to the top of the branch that was trapping Davy, she kept bragging, "I'm a streak of lightning set up edgeways and buttered with quicksilver. I can outgrin, outsnort, outrun, outlift, outsneeze, outsleep, outlie any varmint from Maine to Louisiana. Furthermore, sweetie, I can blow out the moonlight and sing a wolf to sleep." Then she pulled on the other end of the snake rope so hard it seemed as if she might tear the world apart. The right-hand fork of that big tree bent just about double. Then Davy slid his head out as easy as you please. For a minute he was so dizzy he couldn't tell up from down. But when he got everything going straight again, he took a good look at the girl. "What's your name, ma'am?" "Sally Ann, Thunder Ann, Whirlwind," she said. "But if you mind your manners, you can call me Sally." From then on, Davy Crockett was crazy in love with Sally Ann, Thunder Ann, Whirlwind. He asked everyone he knew about her, and everything he heard caused one of Cupid's arrows to jab him in the gizzard. "Oh, I know Sally," the preacher said. "She can dance a rock to pieces and ride a panther bareback." "Sally's a good old friend of mine," the blacksmith said. "Once I seen her crack a walnut with her front teeth." "Sally's so very special," said the schoolmarm. "She likes to whip across the Salt River, using her apron for a sail and her left leg for a rudder." Sally Ann, Thunder Ann, Whirlwind had a reputation for being funny, too. Her best friend Lucy told Davy, "Sally can laugh the bark off a pine tree. She likes to whistle out one side of her mouth while she eats with the other side and grins with the middle. According to her friends, Sally could tame about anything in the world, too. They all told Davy about the time she was churning butter and heard something scratching outside. Suddenly, the door swung open, and in walked the great king bear of the mud forest. He'd come to steal one of her smoked hams. Well, before the king bear could say boo, Sally grabbed a warm dumpling from the pot and stuffed it in his mouth. The dumpling tasted so good, the king bear's eyes winked with tears. But then he started to think that Sally might taste pretty good too. So, opening and closing his big old mouth, he backed her right into a corner. Sally was plenty scared, with her knees a-knocking and her heart a-hammering. But just as the king bear blew his hot breath in her face, she gathered the courage to say, "Would you like to dance?" As everybody knows, no bear can resist an invitation to a square dance. So of course the old fellow forgot all about eating Sally and said, "Love to." Then he bowed real pretty, and the two got to kicking and whooping and swinging each other through the air as Sally sang, "We're on our way to Baltimore, with two behind and two before. Around, around, around we go, where oats, peas, beans, and barley grow." And while she was singing, Sally tied a string from the bear's ankle to her butter churn, so that all the time the old feller was kicking up his legs and dancing around the room, he was also churning her butter. And folks loved to tell the story about Sally's encounter with another stinky varmint, only this one was a human varmint. It seems that Mike Fink, the riverboat man, decided to scare the toenails off Sally because he was so sick and tired of hearing Davy Crockett talk about how great she was. One evening, Mike crept into an old alligator skin and met Sally just as she was taking off to forage in the wood for berries. He spread open his gigantic mouth and made such a howl that he nearly scared himself to death. But Sally paid no more attention to that fool than she would have to a barking puppy dog. However, when Mike put out his claws to embrace her, her anger rose higher than a Mississippi flood. She threw a flash of eye lightning at him, turning the dark to daylight. Then she pulled out a little toothpick and with a single swing sent the alligator head flying 50 feet. And then, to finish him off good, she rolled up her sleeves and knocked Mike Fink clear across the woods and into a muddy swamp. When that fool came to, Davy Crockett was standing over him. "What in the world happened to you, Mikey?" he asked. "Well, I think I must have been hit by some kind of wild alligator," Mike stammered, rubbing his sore head. Davy smiled, knowing full well that Sally Ann, Thunder Ann, Whirlwind just finished giving Mike Fink the only punishment he'd ever known. That incident caused Cupid's final arrow to jab Davy's gizzard. "Sally's the whole steamboat," he said, meaning she was something great. The next day he put on his best raccoon hat and sallied forth to see her. When he got within 3 miles of her cabin, he began to holler her name. His voice was so loud it whirled through the woods like a hurricane. Sally looked out and saw the wind a-blowin' and the trees a-bendin'. She heard her name a-thunderin' through the woods, and her heart began to thump. By now she'd begun to feel that Davy Crockett was the whole steamboat too. So she put on her best hat, an eagle's nest with a wildcat's tail for a feather, and ran outside. Just as she stepped out the door, Davy Crockett burst from the woods and jumped onto her porch as fast as a frog. "Sally, darlin'," he cried, "I think my heart is bustin'. Want to be my wife?" "Oh, my stars and possum dogs, why not?" she said. From that day on, Davy Crockett had a hard time acting tough around Sally Ann, Thunder Ann Whirlwind. His fightin' and hollerin' had no more effect on her than dropping feathers on a barn floor. At least that's what she'd tell you. He might say something else.